I didn't see Dallas coming. Trey Lance traded to Dallas for a 4th-round pick. I didn't think they'd get a 4th.
No one saw Dallas coming.
I didn't think they'd get a 4th, and I didn't think it'd be Dallas.
I definitely thought a trade was coming. I had no idea where, and I too am mildly surprised that it's a 4. We had said earlier, I thought you're probably going to need to attach a player or something, because if not, it's Trey for a 7th, and that sounds terrible.
Yeah.
Well, they got a 4th. And by the way, for those of you draft hounds out there, take a look at what the 49ers now have in next year's NFL draft. They've got 7 picks in the first 4 rounds.
But none in the first or in the second, right?
No.
They have a first
They've
now?
got a 1 and a 2. They've got a 1 and a 2. They did not give any of those up. They never gave up a 1.
Oh, and the Trey Lance, it was this last year's 1.
The Lance deal is done, and the McCaffrey one did not include
That was the
any
2nd,
ones.
3rd, 4th, and 5th.
So they
got a boatload of 3rds because of all the comps for all of their excellent hiring.
Right. They've got their own 1, 2, 3, and 4, 2 comps in the 3, and now Dallas is 4. So they've got 7 picks in the first 4 rounds of next year's draft, which will feel like a complete bucket full after what the last 3 years have felt
to have
like.
an actual day 1 pick would be kind of a nice change. I do think, and I wonder how, before we go to the phones, but do you understand now maybe a little bit more why Kyle Shanahan didn't speak on Wednesday when the depth chart news broke? Does it make more sense to you now?
I didn't not understand it.
You just didn't agree with it.
Well, even that is overstating it. No, we had a conversation about whether or not it's the right thing, A, to just send Fred Warner out there to do it, and then B, it's not like you're hiding, because he did speak publicly on a different platform anyway, and so did John Lynch. So if you're going to do that, and then you're going to sort of say, oh, well, we didn't think that the news would get out, it's like, I don't buy any of that. Yes, you did. You either put it out, or you know darn well that it's going to get out. Like, I just thought that whole handling was clunky, and that's fine. It's a clunky situation. So it could have been clunky if he talked also. But I don't have any issue with that, really. I wasn't, like, angry by it. I just thought you probably could have done that a different way, and it would have been totally safe. I think if you know some things about how this stuff works, you knew what was going to happen this week. Oh, we want him on the team. No, you don't.
Well, they did, unless they got a 4th for him.
Right. Who's motivated to do what when is the question. Are the 49ers motivated to come out there at some point this week and be like, yeah, we would like him to be gone? No, of course they want these other teams to think that they can keep him.
Yeah.
But it was totally evident that they can't. Not for him, not for themselves, not for the situation. It was all there. That's all. But yeah, like, if you're going to talk anyway, talk to the people who are there.
Well, now you can talk, because now it's been a definitive thing to where, and I'm sure he'll talk post-game tonight.
Yeah.
And there'll be questions about Trey. And
he'll say this was best for Trey.
And he'll say, we loved having him here, and stuff. And we got to a point where, we needed to do right by Trey.
If you want to know,
do right by Trey phrase will be used.
If you want to know what Kyle's going to say about him tonight, just go back to what Steve Kerr said when they dealt Wiseman. It's the same press conference.
Or when Dunleavy spoke about dealing Jordan Poole.
Yeah, well, that's a little different. But the thing with Wiseman was just, oh, gosh, we love him. We don't have time here for him now with what we're trying to, that whole thing. That's what, and there is some truth to it. That's not totally off. Sherman in East Palo Alto with Willard and Dibs. Hey, Sherman, what's going on? What are you doing?
Hey, what's going on? Love you guys' show.
Thanks, Sherman.
I'm thinking the reason why the Cowboys got Trey Lance is because they're so tired of getting beat by the Niners in the playoffs. They had to go get somebody that know they play so they could try to win the playoffs this year. So that's my whole thing of why the Cowboys would get him, because why would they get him if they already had 3 quarterbacks?
Well, that would be Sherman, thank you. That'd be a very, very expensive way to potentially get a playbook that could change about 5 times between now and then. By the way, the Cowboys didn't really have much trouble stopping the 49ers offense. No. They held them to 19 points. Yeah. They just didn't score any themselves.
October 8th, Sunday night. Da, 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 da.
Oh, yeah.
Da, 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 da. Sunday Night Football, Week 5 in Santa Clara at Levi's Stadium. Trey Lance and the Fighting Cowboys against Sam Darnold and your 49ers.
I mean, if you're a conspiracy theorist, the NFL finds a way for Dak Prescott and Cooper Rush to be unavailable for that game. If Trey Lance were starting that game, the internet would break.
Trey Lance against Sam Darnold. Brock Purdy with a hangnail.
That's right.
Cooper Rush, maybe he's out for paternity leave.
No, all the 49er quarterbacks are hurt, and they trade with the Raiders to bring back Jimmy Garoppolo. Oh. All right, enough of that. Jefferson,
that was fun for a second.
Jefferson and Danville. Hey, Jefferson, what's up?
Hey, it's actually Justin, but thanks,
sorry.
Thanks for having me. No problem. I really appreciate it.
We got the J right.
Yeah, exactly. Almost there, right?
It's the same thing.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it. It's the best thing that could have happened, with the Trey Lance thing. It's not every day that, you buffed on a 3rd overall pick, but then hit on the 7th round pick. So I don't know what the hype was coming out of college with Trey Lance. I mean, the guy was extremely inaccurate throwing down the field. His upright style was never going to translate to the NFL, and all of his college work was done in 1 year at FCS school. People say he got a shot, but he can never process the game fast enough. He never had the confidence, really, to put it out on the field. They should have looked at Justin Fields. He was a better athlete, rocket arm, good speed, played in the Big 12. He wasn't the most ultimate project in the NFL draft, which, Trey Lance was. So Brock Purdy, we have a 7th round home run, a franchise quarterback with moxie. He sees the field at a high level, processes the game at a high level, and performs like a high-end pro on the field. We don't need the distractions at the backup quarterback situation. We should be talking about getting Bosa back on the field. At least this will help as well clear some cap space for that to happen.
Well, it only clears $940,000 at least this year, $5 million next year. I don't think that's really going to be the difference for Bosa. But Justin, thanks. The only thing I didn't necessarily love about that call is that it sounds a little bit too final to me. The idea, Trey Lance was never going to translate. In other words, you're ending Trey Lance's career as if it can never be good. I don't think that. I don't feel that way. I've never felt that way. The opinions, speaking for me, that I can share on Trey Lance and why I said throughout the show today that they've got to trade him because it makes better sense for the Niners and it makes better sense for Trey, is that I don't think there's any drop-off whatsoever from Trey Lance to Brandon Allen, and there might be actually in the other direction a drop-off from Brandon to Trey if you're talking about right now. I have no idea what he's going to look like a year or two from now, and could it translate to the NFL? It might, but he's not there now. He's not ready, and that doesn't work for the 49ers. And so it's a massive miss because the whole point was he needed to be ready last year, and he's not even ready this year. And there's some bad breaks involved in that with injury and some unforeseen with the emergence of someone like Brock Purdy. But we've definitely reached a point where the Niners were not going to put any more resources into developing Trey Lance, and that's what he needs. We'll see where it goes from there.
Well, and he's in a spot now in Dallas where he'll be QB2 or QB3. We don't know if Cooper Rush will be the guy, and we'll have to see how it plays out in the couple of weeks before week 1. But Dak Prescott now gets a chance to mentor Trey Lance, and he's got a chance to get a fresh start. And I hope that Trey Lance looks at it in the way that Mitchell Trubisky looked at it in terms of going to Buffalo. He was a backup, and then he got a fresh start in Pittsburgh, and he hasn't yet cemented himself as the full-time starter, and now he's the backup again. But if you're a career backup in the league, there are worse things to be. Chase Daniel made about $45 million as a career backup, and Trey Lance hopefully will get to a spot where he gets a chance to compete to be a starter, and it may happen in Dallas after Dak Prescott's contract is up, or it may happen due to injury in a spot.
Who knows? Yeah, the problem for Trey and the comparisons we make to others like Trubisky, like Sam Darnold for that matter, the problem for Trey is that he's put nothing on tape. He hasn't played yet. Trey Lance needs to find a path to the field. And a situation has developed that is going to make that very difficult for him. If he doesn't show out in practice better, show out in preseason games. That's why Dallas, to me, is actually a little bit of a head-scratcher. I'm in full agreement that Trey needs a fresh start, and he's got that. But I would have, if I'm Trey, probably would have loved to go to a spot that's got a little bit less definition at the quarterback spot for the next couple years.
But how many of those teams are there that don't now have rookies that they recently drafted, or other spots where you got coaching uncertainty and coaching upheaval? I think if I'm Trey Lance, I don't mind going to Dallas because you've got a veteran quarterback under whom you can learn, a team that is ready to win. I mean, Dallas is the third best team in the NFC by most assessments. So you're going to a winning organization and you're backing up a guy who hasn't necessarily always been healthy. I think it's a good spot to go for a fresh start.
I mean, again, any fresh start is better than staying here through the eyes of Trey. But, I mean, I'll give you a handful of teams that just on the surface, without knowing their cap situation or any of that, I give you some teams that if I'm Trey Lance, I would have liked to hear called rather than Dallas. I would have rather gone to the Tampa Bay Bucks. I would have rather gone to the Arizona Cardinals. I don't know if the 49ers would consider within the division.
I mean, Kyler Murray is going to be their quarterback. I mean, they're on the hook for him till 2028.
We'll see about that. They're trying to tank for Caleb Williams. I mean, you can see it with what they're doing.
They're paying that guy. Well, I mean, you're paying.
Sometimes you got to eat it.
They're going to have to eat like $160 million.
Well,
that's a big eat.
Well, no. First of all,
his guaranteed number is massive.
His guaranteed number is big, but we're already a year and a half into it. So
right. I get you that number, but it's damn near $100 million that they still owe him guaranteed.
I would have rather heard the Raiders. The
Raiders is an interesting one.
The Washington Commanders.
Oh, they love Sam Howell.
I know that.
No, they are loving Sammy Howell.
That narrative is taken off because he had a good preseason game.
Couple of them.
Maybe I would have rather gone to the Patriots.
That's also an interesting one.
Yeah,
because they've got
any of those.
Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi.
Would have been amazing for Mac Jones and Trey Lance to be teammates.
Right? I mean, you talk about like Indy and Houston, and they just drafted rookie QBs. Chicago's got the guy drafted in Trey Lance's draft class, Justin Fields. So I don't think there are as many like viable spots as there usually would be for Trey Lance to go there and compete.
And Minnesota, the one we were all talking about. I think I would have rather have heard as the destination.
They like Nick Mullins coming off of the internal brace, and he's got some arm strength. And I'm reporting on what I've heard from deep inside the Minnesota community.
Peter King made a good point yesterday that Kirk Cousins is a real thinker. And if you think that you're about to have a decent season, it'd be a bad idea to plop that in the back of Kirk's mind 2 weeks before the season starts. So that's an interesting point with regard to why Minnesota doesn't want to do that right now. James in Palo Alto with Willard and Dibs. Hi, James. What are you doing?
Hey, guys, just coming back from the market, and I heard the news. And I had a question I don't know the answer to. I hope you guys can help me with. How complex is the Dallas offense? How quickly can Trey assimilate it? Can he really be a 2 or a 3? Or would you imagine him on the practice squad trying to learn the signals, the calls, the plays, the routes, the blocking? I mean, it seems pretty complicated for him to come in with 2 weeks of practice and imagine that he would go to a new system and start.
Well, James, he's not doing that. No one's asking him to play in 2 weeks. This is a long-term play for the Dallas Cowboys, a flyer, if you will. There is no offense more complex than Kyle Shanahan's, so I've been told by players who've played in it. But I'd also say that the idea of Trey Lance figuring out an offense is not a problem. He's whip smart. He can figure out the offense. It's a matter of execution and accuracy when you're actually on the field. I don't think if you put Trey in the classroom with the offense, there's any problem at all. In fact, I've long thought that's why he wowed Kyle Shanahan. I think he's amazing in the room with understanding the concepts, but execution and accuracy were a problem for Trey Lance. But he doesn't need to go crash course and be ready in 2 weeks. Dak Prescott's starting for the Dallas Cowboys.
Right. And they have a new offensive system anyway, with Kellen Moore having departed, and it's much more of a run-heavy scheme than it has been in the past. So that actually might favor Trey Lance in terms of not having to go out there and throw it. And a lot of people in Dallas are excited over the notion that Dak Prescott won't have to throw it 35 times a game, ideally, because Dak Prescott is prone to the turnover. So you button it up a little bit more, you rely on the run game a little bit more, and take your shots with Dak in the passing game when you can.
Daniel in San Francisco next up on Willard and Dibs. Hi, Daniel. What's up?
Hey, guys. I'm loving your show.
Thanks, man.
I came up here in the 80s, Montana, Rice, Joe Walsh coaching. I actually...
Bill, close enough, yeah.
Yeah, so I cut to, years later, I worked in film and TV in L.A. and eventually commercial casting, and Dwight Clark came in, and I shut down the whole casting session to just talk to him. Okay, now, I've been listening to what you've been saying about Trey Lance, and I was thinking about Steve Young, because Steve Young was in the background of Montana the whole time, practicing, getting better, and then when Montana stepped up, he was just firing bullets. So I think Trey's going to do great.
Well, I don't know if I fully, Daniel, thank you for the comments and the call. I don't know if I understand the comp completely to Steve Young. Steve Young had accomplished some things, at least at the professional level already, when he came to the San Francisco 49ers, and that QB controversy, obviously, first of all, was longer, it was louder, it was higher level, it was all kinds of things that this one never was. But if your overall point is that Trey Lance still has time to work on his craft and become effective, I agree with that. I agree with that completely. You know what I mean? This conversation has never been about what can happen in 2025. He might be great, but it's irrelevant. Even if it ends up happening, I wouldn't look at the 49ers and say, you shouldn't have made this trade. I would say you shouldn't have made this pick, but you have to make this trade right now for all kinds of reasons. There's nothing that Trey can really do for you because you are interested only in the now. And because of the circumstances surrounding his arrival, this is a distraction. It is loud. It is unwelcome. And for Trey, it's an awful place for him to be because it is not offering him the resources, the development that he needs to go out there and get better at the game. This trade made all the sense in the world.
It reminds me more and more, and we can completely maybe close the book on this parallel with James Wiseman because both have now been traded, but James Wiseman needed exactly what Trey Lance needed in very similar ways. James needed a place to go where he could develop. He needed to be able to go out on the court and try to become an NBA player. It's a little different for the quarterback because Trey Lance doesn't get to go and be QB1 and play, but he goes to a new setting, a new system, and it's a new opportunity for him to show what he can do in practice, or maybe he's running the scout team, whatever he's doing, he's got a new set of eyes on him and a new culture where he can go and thrive because he got to a point here where you were put into a box as QB3 and maybe QB4. And I've said this all along in terms of my analysis of Trey Lance, and it wasn't only through my own eyes. It's what you and I have talked about, and I kind of learned this from you in terms of, watch what the people who are in charge do in terms of actions and let that guide your opinion in terms of how things might go. Because I can say I love Trey Lance and all the things that I like about him, but if the team is showing you other things that indicate maybe they don't like him as much, that becomes a guide as to how this might go. And here we are, August 25th, and now Trey Lance has been traded to Dallas because he probably wasn't going to be QB3. And, and I wonder what would have happened by Tuesday if they wouldn't have had the opportunity to trade Trey Lance because, my sense just in watching all the things they've done, they've been showing us and telling us they weren't sold on Trey Lance's ability right now.
It's just funny, like even earlier this afternoon. I'm not going to mention who it was who was listening to our show and was texting in and said, come on, Mark, If there's no trade, there's no trade, and that's that. You got to move on, and he'll make the team on Tuesday. And I wrote back, oh, there's a trade. There's always a trade. This is Trey Lance. You got to understand that this is still Trey Lance. This is someone that every NFL team 2.5 years ago put a first-round grade on and has started 4 games. Like, human beings don't move on that quick. Think about all of you. All of you are sitting here going, he never got a shot. He could be this. He could be that. Well, guess who else is saying that? All of the GMs. They agree with you. So why would somebody not give up something for $6 million to take a look? Do you know how cheap that is to the Dallas Cowboys? Jerry Jones just made that when I started this sentence. So, of course, there was going to be a trade. Of course, even though they said, we're not naming QB2, and then they named QB2. We're not trading Trey Lance. We're playing Trey Lance on Friday night. No. You got to both do right by Trey and do right by yourself.